Is it the word wait or weigh? Lose or lose? Laid or lain? Just how do we recognize which one is what? And how do we decide which one to use when? Right before we start the lesson, let me assure you that these words, although very commonly confused, are not as difficult to differentiate and use. Just a little bit of practice and you're good to go. Let's begin with wait and weigh. One of them is a noun, and the other one is a verb. Think you can guess? I'll give you a few seconds. Trick question. Both of them are verbs. The only difference is that one of them is both a noun and a verb, and that's the word wait. A lot of people might tell you that wait is a noun while weigh is a verb, and that's how you tell them apart, which isn't exactly correct. I mean, it's only half true. The word wait, as a noun, is commonly used when talking about a person's relative mass. Weight tells us just how heavy or light a person or an object is. My dad's weight is 74 kilograms. That's how heavy the speaker's dad is. My dad's weight is 45 kilograms. That's how light the speaker's dad is. But the word weight also has other meanings. It isn't just limited to the mass or heaviness of a person or a thing. For instance, weight can also be used in the sense of influence and importance. For example, what my parents have to say about our relationship would have a lot of weight. Were those a lot of words? Well, I hope not. Anyway, in the given example, we're talking about how the perception of the speaker's parents would go on to influence the relationship that's being talked about. If the speaker's parents were to be against the relationship, then it's likely that the relationship would fall apart simply because what the parents have to say is important and would thereby have some sort of influence. Other examples would be, your words have a lot of weight. This is a very common expression. Don't put much weight on matters that are insignificant. Let me tell you that in all of our discussed examples, we're using the word wait as a singular, uncountable noun. You can't say, what my parents have to say about our relationship would have a lot of weights. Your words have a lot of weights. Don't put many weights on matters that are insignificant. These are all wrong. We can't measure the importance or influence of something. But how about this sentence? I lift a couple of weights at the gym. Sounds familiar, does it? You'll hear the word weights every now and then when talking about gym and the equipment. You may have guessed this already, but weights in this case refers to certain heavy objects that can be lifted or thrown. He threw some weights in the bag to make it sink. James's car wasn't able to pull those heavy weights along. Because we're talking about heavy objects that can be counted, we can pluralize weight. Now that we're done with nouns, let's talk about the verb wait. Number 1. Wait as a verb can mean applying pressure or holding something down with the help of something else, something heavy. Pour some water over the lid to weight it down. We usually do this to cook something quickly, right? We fill a shallow lid with water and allow the food to cook in the trapped steam. I stood the bottle on the stack of documents, weighting it down. Number 2. We can use wait as a verb when attributing some kind of importance or value to something. The more you weight your options, the further you're cautious. This sentence basically means that the more you give importance to your options, that is by assessing them and thinking them over, the more careful you become. Different fields are weighted differently. Most think that science is the most important field of study. Number 3. We can also use the verb wait when something is arranged or purposely placed to lean towards either a favorable or unfavorable position, figuratively of course. The government's decision to provide reservations is weighted towards minorities. Do you think this solution is weighted in our favor? Now let's talk about the verb weigh. Number 1. We use weigh when we want to measure or specify how heavy something is. In this case, you cannot use weight. For example, she weighs 50 kilograms. You can weigh the vegetables on the weighing scale at the supermarket. Number 2. We use weigh when we want to assess the importance or value of something. You might be thinking, that sounds familiar. Well, you're absolutely right. In this case, you can use either weight or weigh, but generally, we use weigh. We use weight as a noun more. Weigh up your choices before you make a decision. It's not easy to weigh the possible consequences. Number 3. Similar to our third use of weight, we use weigh when we want to talk about a particular thing having an important effect or influence. Our victory weighs heavily with us, meaning our victory is highly beneficial for us. When something weighs with someone, it proves to be important or influential for them. On the contrary, their victory weighs heavily against us would mean that the other party's victory would prove to be a disadvantage for us. Number 4. You can use different types of phrasal verbs like weigh down, weigh up, weigh in, weigh out, and weigh on to mean holding something down through weight, assessing something carefully, participating in something forcefully, measuring the amount of something, making someone feel nervous or worried. So the ultimate takeaway from this lesson is that the word weight is normally used as a noun, but can be used as a verb depending on the context. Sometimes, it's used interchangeably with the verb weigh. You can weigh your options, or weight your options. Something can weigh another down, or weight it down. Something can weigh in your favor, or weight in your favor. However, if you want to talk about, specify, or assess the heaviness of something, we stick to the verb weigh only. It weighs a ton. Not, it weighs a ton. I hope this was simple enough for you to be able to understand the basic difference between these two. Weigh is basically the verb counterpart of the word weight. Okay, so moving on to our next topic. Lose versus lose. Notice that there's a slight but meaningful difference in the way we pronounce these two words. Lose, lose. Lose can be used in a variety of ways, its meaning changing slightly. But essentially, to lose something means you're not able to find it or there's an absence of it. So when you say, I'm going to lose weight next year, you mean that you're going to reduce your weight. The past simple and past participle forms of lose are lost. I've lost my keys. It means you're not able to find the keys. Some men lost their lives in the war. It means that some men died in the war. They're no longer here with us. I can't lose a single second of my life. It means that you can't waste a single second of your life. Loose, on the other hand, has a completely different meaning. Loose is a word used to refer to things that are not tight or held together firmly. The garment you bought is quite loose. It means that the garment doesn't fit the person properly. The past simple form of the word loose is loosed. You might have heard the word loosen as well, but that's a different word. They both have the same meaning though. Loosen has its own past simple and past participle forms. I loose my grip around the handle. It means you relax your grip and aren't holding the handle as firmly or tightly. Similarly, I loose the ropes and lower them down. The thing about loose is that we don't use it as a verb all that much. Hence the use of the word loosed is far less. We generally prefer the verb loosen instead. Its past simple and past participle forms are loosened. I wish you'd loosen up a bit. Basically means that I wish you'd relax a bit. A few more examples. He loosened his tie and took a deep breath. Your attitude towards me could loosen our bond. means it could make the bond fragile or less strong. The policies were loosened by the government to allow small shop owners to operate more comfortably. In this case, it means the policies were made less strict or severe. Now, it's time for our last bit of concern: laid versus lain. Here's a rule of thumb. Before you decide on either laid or lain, ask yourself if you're talking about reclining somewhere or putting something down. Are you, as a whole, the one moving, or are you the one moving something else? There are two words out there, lay and lie, and from these two words we derive their past simple and past participle forms. Lay means to put something down, an object, basically. The past simple and past participle forms of lay are both laid. The present participle form is laying. Present simple: I can lay the mattress down for you. Past simple: my chicken laid the eggs last night. Past participle: my chicken has laid the eggs. Present participle: my chicken has been laying eggs for over 5 minutes. A few more examples. Lay the tray down and have a seat. I've laid a trap for the rabbit. She laid a plan to solve the problem. On the other hand, lie means to recline or lean down. In this case, the one doing the action assumes a certain resting position. The past simple of lie is lay, and the past participle is laying. Its present participle form is lying. Present simple: I lie down after I get home from work. Past simple: she laid down after a long day at work. Past participle: she has lain down after a long day at work. Present participle: she's been lying down for quite some time now. What you need to understand is the basic difference between these two words. Individually, these two words can have slightly different meanings depending on the context in which they're used, but the core difference remains the same. For example, parents have always laid an enormous amount of stress on their children. In this sentence, we're talking about the verb lay, and the core meaning of it is being used figuratively. We're talking about parents putting or assigning stress upon their children. The present participle forms of these two verbs can really help decide whether we should use the verb lie or lay. Take these two sentences as examples. The dust lay on the floor. The dust lies on the floor. Which one's correct? Actually, both of them are correct. What would be the base form of the verb in the two sentences? The answer is the verb lie. The verb lie doesn't require a direct object, unlike lay. It leaves us with the question lay what? Now, as suggested, try changing the sentences to present continuous ones. The dust is laying on the floor. Does it make sense? The dust is lying on the floor. Does make sense? Okay then, folks. Thanks again for tuning in to today's lesson. We'll be back with another lesson next week. Until next time. Ciao!